The wind was crying that evening, a long, hollow sound that rolled across the Texas plains like an old ghost. The sun had already drowned behind the ridge, leaving only the embers of a fading orange sky over the Hollow Creek ranch. The wooden fences creaked. Horses whinnied nervously inside the stable, their breaths misting in the cold dusk. And out there, near the old barn, stood Eli Carter, the rancher, tall, broad-shouldered, his face weathered from years of working under the cruel sun. Eli had spent the entire day rounding up stray cattle, but even as night came, his heart felt uneasy. Something about the quiet was wrong. He looked toward the old barn, the one his late father built, the one nobody used anymore. The doors were slightly ajar, swinging softly with the wind. He could have sworn he locked them earlier. As he walked toward it, boots crunching the dry earth, he heard a faint sound, like a whisper or a sob. He stopped. The night air seemed to freeze around him. Inside the barn, the darkness was thick. The scent of hay mixed with old wood and dust. A lantern hung from a rusty nail near the entrance. Eli lit it. The golden light trembled across the floorboards and onto something strange, a figure curled up in the corner under a thick, worn-out blanket. "Who's there?" his deep voice echoed. The figure flinched. Then a voice came, soft, trembling, female. "Please, don't lift the blanket." Eli froze. The way she said it, like she was holding on to her last thread of strength, made his stomach twist. He took a cautious step forward. "Ma'am, this is private land." "You lost or hurt?" No reply. Just silence. Then, a faint cough. He could see a hand peeking out from under the blanket, pale, thin, trembling. She wasn't dressed like someone from the nearby town, her nails were chipped, her wrist bruised. She looked broken. Eli swallowed. His ranch was miles from the nearest road. Nobody ever wandered here by accident. "What happened to you?" he asked again, softer this time. She whispered, "Please, don't lift it. You'll regret it." The way she said regret, it wasn't a warning. It was a plea. Eli felt something tighten in his chest. He wasn't a man easily scared, he'd seen storms, cattle stampedes, and death. But this? This was different. He turned toward the stable door, intending to fetch his coat or call the sheriff, and that's when he noticed the muddy footprints leading into the barn, 2 sets of them. One small. One large. The larger one stopped near the blanket. The smaller ones, hers, maybe, were smeared and shaky, like she'd been dragged or running. He felt his pulse quicken. "Ma'am," he said again, voice trembling slightly now, "if someone's hurt, I can help. Just tell me what's under there." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. "You can't help him," she said. "You can't help anyone now." The horses in the next stall neighed wildly. Something shifted outside, a thud, like a door slamming. Eli spun around, lantern trembling in his hand. Nothing there. Just the whisper of wind. When he turned back, she was crying, silent, desperate tears soaking into the blanket. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. He just wouldn't stop. Eli knelt slowly beside her. "You need to let me see," he said, almost begging himself now. "If someone's hurt, I can get Doc Miller." Her eyes shot open, wide, blue, terrified. "Please, don't lift it," she screamed. But it was too late. Eli's hand had already caught the corner of the blanket. And as he lifted it, just a few inches, the lantern light flickered over what was underneath. His heart stuttered. The air rushed out of his lungs like a punch. And for a long, horrible moment, all he could do was stare, unable to breathe, unable to speak. Then the lantern fell from his hand and shattered against the floor. The flames spread fast. The horses screamed. And from under that blanket, came the smell of blood. The barn burned like a beacon in the night, fire clawing its way up the rafters, turning the sky into a hellish orange. Eli stumbled back, coughing, trying to understand what he had just seen, or thought he'd seen, under that cursed blanket. His heart hammered in his chest like a gunshot echo. He wanted to run, to fetch water, to do anything, but his legs refused to move. The woman was still there, her face ghost pale, watching the fire rise with a hollow stare. The tears had stopped. It was as if she had burned out everything inside her long before the fire began. "Ma'am," Eli choked, "we gotta get out of here." She didn't move. She just whispered, he wouldn't let go. Even after he was gone. Eli didn't understand, but something deep inside him, something primal, told him to get away from that barn. He grabbed her by the arm and pulled her out as the flames roared behind them. The night swallowed them both, smoke trailing from their clothes as they stumbled toward the water trough near the corral. When the fire was finally tamed, half the barn was nothing but ash. Sheriff Dugan arrived an hour later with a few men from town. They found Eli sitting near the fence, his hat on the ground beside him, staring at the burned remains. The woman sat next to him, wrapped in a horse blanket, her eyes empty. "What in God's name happened here, Carter?" the sheriff asked. Eli didn't answer right away. He was still trying to make sense of the image seared into his mind, a man's face, pale and still, lying beneath the blanket. The man's chest had been torn open, his eyes frozen in terror. But the worst part, was that the man looked exactly like him. "Carter," the sheriff repeated, stepping closer. Eli swallowed hard. There was someone under the blanket. Looked like he'd been dead for days. The sheriff frowned. "We didn't find any body in there." Eli turned sharply. "What?" "Nothing but ashes and timber, Eli. No bones, no nothing. You sure you weren't seeing things? That fire, it can mess with your head." Eli felt the world tilt under him. He looked toward the woman, but she was staring down at her hands, whispering something too soft to hear. "Ma'am," the sheriff said gently, "you got a name?" She lifted her head slowly. "Mara," she said. Her voice was dry, cracked like the earth after a drought. "All right, Mara. You tell me what happened." She hesitated. "I came here 3 nights ago. I was running from my husband." Her voice trembled. "He used to hurt me. When I ran, he followed. I hid in that barn. I thought I was safe. But he found me." Her eyes went distant, like she was watching it happen again. "He dragged me inside. Said he'd kill me before letting me go. I fought back. There was a shovel. I didn't mean to, but when I hit him, he didn't get up." The sheriff's face hardened. "So you killed him?" Tears filled her eyes. "He wasn't dead," she said. "Not for long." The men exchanged uneasy glances. Eli whispered, "What do you mean, not for long?" Her hands trembled. "When I covered him with that blanket, I could still hear him breathing. Slow, ragged. I was too scared to lift it. So I prayed. And when the breathing stopped, I thought it was over. But when the night came, I heard him whisper my name again. From under the blanket." The sheriff stepped back. That's impossible." She looked up, her eyes wide and glistening. "He said if anyone lifts that blanket, he'll come back." Eli's heart stopped for a beat. "Mara," he said slowly, "when I lifted that blanket." She finished his sentence for him, her voice a broken whisper. "He came back." A chill ran down Eli's spine. The night air suddenly felt too cold, too still. From the ashes of the barn came a faint crack, wood shifting. Then another. The sheriff turned, lantern raised. Everyone froze. Something moved in the blackened wreckage. The horses began to neigh wildly again. A gust of wind tore through the valley, carrying with it a sound, faint but clear, a whisper. "Mara." The sheriff dropped his lantern. Jesus Christ. Eli grabbed Mara's hand. Run. They ran through the dark fields, the sound of their boots pounding against the dirt, the moonlight breaking through the clouds. Behind them, the barn's ruins began to stir, and something heavy rose from the ashes. They didn't stop until they reached the ridge overlooking the ranch. Both fell to their knees, gasping, trembling. Mara turned to Eli, tears streaking her soot-stained face. "You shouldn't have lifted it," she whispered. "Now he'll never stop." Eli looked back at the barn, or what was left of it, and for a split second, he saw a figure standing among the smoke. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing his face. And then it was gone. The dawn came slow, gray and silent. Sheriff Dugan and his men searched the ruins again, but found nothing. No tracks, no bones. Just ash. Eli left Hollow Creek a week later. Sold the ranch. No one saw him again after that. But sometimes, folks around those parts say that when the wind blows hard at night, you can hear a voice carried across the fields, a man's voice, whispering beneath the sound of the storm. "Please, don't lift the blanket."